Hello again, everyone. Continuing LA week, I'm going to look at the Angels of the MLB, the other baseball team in LA. I talked about the Dodgers yesterday, and today I'm going to talk about the Angels. AL West is the division they play in, and they are also currently leading their division. A little different story than the NL West. I think with the NL West, it's going to come down between the Dodgers and the Giants over there. With the AL West, I think it's going to come down to the Angels and the Astros, and possibly the Rangers. I think the Rangers could have a decent second half and could sneak in there. I think the Athletics and the Mariners, the other two teams in the AL West, aren't going to really compete for this division this year anyway. If Texas makes some moves, I think they could come back. They're only 4 games below 500, so they could find a way to compete in this division. But the Houston Astros, at least in my opinion, I didn't expect them to be as good as they have been this season. And knowing how close this division is going to come down to, they might make some moves. So we'll see if the Angels make any moves to counteract that. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting division. I do think we could potentially see an LA versus LA World Series if everything goes well for both of these teams. But we'll look at the starting pitching for the Angels first, because that's what's going to be able to get them to the playoffs and get them to the World Series. You can have guys like Mike Trout and Albert Pujols and all those great position players, but if your pitching staff and your starting rotation struggles or doesn't perform well, doesn't matter if those guys go out and get 25 home runs by the All-Star break. It's not going to matter. You have to have guys who can be in your starting rotation that can stop the opposition. And I think they have a very solid starting rotation with this team. Starting with Garrett Richards, he's got the most wins. He's got a 9-6 record with 77 Ks, 3.53 ERA. CJ Wilson's got a 7-7 record with 98 strikeouts, combined with a 3.83 ERA. Matt Schumacher, I'm not sure if you pronounce it the same way as the F1 racer, but Schumacher, either or. He's got a 4.80 ERA, so a little high in the ERA. That's probably what's led to his 4-7 record. He does have 73 strikeouts to go with that record. Their all-star representative, Hector Santiago, I think he was there purely because he's got a great ERA, 2.33 ERA. That's a fantastic ERA for a starter. Anything under 4 is going to be a good ERA for a starter. You get under 3 as a starter, that's fantastic. You get under 2, you're probably looking at Cy Young numbers kind of thing. But 2.33 is very, very respectable, very, very good. A 6-4 record with 98 strikeouts for him as well. So those are kind of the 4 guys that they have there. Jared Weaver obviously is on the DL right now, which I think hurts them a little bit. But his numbers are a little inflated. 4.75 ERA, which also probably led to him having a 4-8 record and 49 strikeouts. So hopefully he can come back off the DL and play well in the second half for them. But if he has to stay on the DL for an extended period of time, they do have a very good young pitcher in Andrew Heaney. He's only 24. He's only pitched 20 1/3 innings, but he's got 17 strikeouts over that span, 2-0 record, and a 1.77 ERA. So you really can't judge him too much on his numbers with the limited time that he's had out on the mound. But I think he's going to be a solid option for them if Weaver has to stay on the DL for a long period of time. I don't think with Weaver being on the DL, they now have to go and find another starter who can be a top 3 starter to compete in the AL West. I think the guys they have are going to do a solid enough job to get them there. And they have a great closer as well in Houston Street. He's got a 2.27 ERA, 36 strikeouts, as well as 24 saves. So he's getting a little more work than the closer over with the Dodgers, Kenley Jensen, but that's okay. Obviously, the Angels have played a few more close games, which is making it even more important for you to have a very good closer. If you're not going to play in a lot of close games and you only need a guy that can go out and get you 30 saves a season, you still need to have a good closer. You can't just not have one because you don't play in a lot of close games, because you can't predict how many close games you're going to play in. But if you're going to be playing a lot of close games like they have in the first half, you're going to know you're going to need a solid closer in the second half. That's a piece that sometimes teams will evaluate after the first half. If your regular closer has blown a bunch of saves, or if you've already gone through 3 or 4 closer options by the first half of the season, you're going to start looking at an option of teams who might be willing to get rid of their closer, like Papelbon with the Phillies. Obviously, he even wants out of there. He's made that abundantly clear, saying Toronto's an option that he thinks he'd be a good fit with. So there might be teams out there for that, but I don't think the Angels need to do that. I think Street is a great closer option for them. They got a solid pitching staff there, and I think that pitching staff is going to be able to take them in the right direction and potentially win this division. As long as they can compete with the Astros and the potential surges of the Rangers in the second half, they can win this division. Looking at position players, let's start with the outfield. Obviously, I'll mention Mike Trout first. All-Star, back-to-back All-Star MVP. He's a great young guy. I mean, the 2 center fielders that you see in LA with Pedersen over with the Dodgers and Mike Trout here. If you're out in LA and you get a chance to go to a ball game, you are seeing two of the brightest young stars in the game, and that are going to take these franchises forward for years to come. The Angels are going to have to find a way to pay this guy when he becomes a free agent. I don't know if that's anytime soon. I don't know how long his contract is for, but whatever it is, you keep this guy on your team for years. Don't let a team like the Yankees come in and offer him a bunch of money. I only say the Yankees because they're usually the kind of team that can do that. You find a way to give this guy money, and I think other players want to play with this guy. So you might find other guys who are nearing the end of their career that might take a little bit of a pay cut in order for you to keep Mike Trout, because Mike Trout is the heart and soul of this team, and you got to find a way to keep him for years to come. A guy who already has 26 homers, 54 RBIs, and a 309 average is fantastic. Who potentially can have a 50 homer, 120 RBI season. He's an all-star. He's an MVP. He's everything you want in a player. He's also got 9 stolen bases. He is the epitome of a 5-tool player. And I say all this, knocking on wood, that he doesn't, tear a hamstring or something coming in throughout the second half of the season. Because even if he had a 250 average, with that kind of production, any manager is going to be fine with that. But you combine 26 homers, 54 RBIs, and then you add a 309 average onto that. He is a beast. And then you also throw in 9 stolen bases, so he could have a 40 home run, 120 RBI, as well as a 20 stolen base season. That's fantastic. 50 home run season, maybe even. I'll say 40 to be a little more realistic, because 50 is going to be hard to get to. So I think 40 and 100 is something that he'll easily get to. 50, 120, definite possibility. He can easily also have 20 stolen bases, so he's a fantastic center fielder for this team. I think, not unfortunately for him, but Cole Calhoun is another great outfielder for this team, great young player, but he's playing in the shadow of Mike Trout, so he kind of, I don't want to say gets forgotten, but he's a great player. He's got a 268 average, so not an average as great as Trout's, but he's got 47 RBIs. Trout's got 54, so he's almost got the same amount of RBI total as Mike Trout. He's got 10 homers. Obviously, he doesn't have the same kind of power numbers as Trout does, and he also has 4 stolen bases. So, a great right fielder for this team. Like I said, kind of plays in the shadow of Mike Trout. I don't think he's going to be upset about that at all. I think he performs well. I think the Angels fans love him just as much as they love Mike Trout. You got a great young outfielder out there, and I think Cole Calhoun just needs some recognition, and that's why I'm giving it to him now. Not that, again, Mike Trout isn't deserving of all the accolades he's achieved and deserves to get, but Cole Calhoun is another great player that I think just sometimes gets kind of lost in the shuffle. Their other outfielder, Matt Joyce, out in left field, he hasn't been having a great season for them. He's only got a 192 batting average with 5 homers and 19 RBIs, but the other two guys are definitely playing fantastic for them. When you combine the numbers of those 3 outfielders at the All-Star break, those 3 guys combined for 41 homers and 120 RBIs, which is fantastic. If you can have your outfielder go, your 3 everyday starting outfielders go out and over the course of a season, if I do the math quickly, can go out and combine for 75 homers and 250 RBIs, that's a great outfield. One that can, if you can keep healthy, you're set for years. So great outfield there in the Angels system. Looking at their infield, I'll start with the first baseman, Albert Pujols, obviously the other all-star for this team. 256 average, 26 homers, 56 RBIs. So very same production numbers as Mike Trout. His average is just down, and like I said, teams are going to be fine with that. A guy batting 300 plus with that kind of production, you don't see that very often. Pujols is a 256 average, which isn't a great average, but it doesn't matter. If you have a guy that's going to hit you that many home runs and drive in that many RBIs by the All-Star game, you're going to be fine with him having an average below 300. That's no problem. CJ Cron is another first baseman they have on their roster and on their depth chart. He's been playing very well as well. He's got a 257 average with 5 homers, 18 RBIs, so same average as Pujols practically. Obviously, playing time, he's not going to have nearly the same kind of numbers as he does, but it's nice that in the AL, you have that DH option. You can give Pujols some rest, and you can bring this guy in. That way, when the postseason comes along, then the end of September rolls along, Pujols will still be healthy and not be gassed out. So, great player they got there. Then at second baseman, Johnny Giavotella has got a 268 average with 3 homers and 33 RBIs. Third baseman, David Freese, having a good season for them with 10 homers and 37 RBIs. Combine that with a 242 average. Their shortstop, Eric Aybar, is playing very, very well this year. He's got a 280 average, so great average from him, with a couple homers, 27 RBIs, and 6 stolen bases. So those are great numbers from all three of those guys. Again, the averages are okay with Givitella 268, Ibar 280. David Freese again is playing well, 10 homers, 37 RBIs. So you're going to be okay giving up a little bit of an average for that. 242 is an okay average. Chris Iannetta, their catcher, is having a horrible year as far as I'm concerned. He's only got a 189 average with 4 homers and 17 RBIs. So we might see a little more playing time from Carlos Perez. He's got a 226 average, so again, not great. Combined with a couple of homers and 13 RBIs, but so they're not getting the production numbers from the catcher positions like other teams are. But that's not a big deal when you got guys like Trout and Calhoun in the outfield, and Pujols is producing well for you, and Freese is having a solid season. They got a good team in LA, and I definitely think that the AL West is going to be a division that's going to come down to, and it's the end of September, it's going to come down to the Astros or the Angels, and who has enough left in the tank, and who has enough talent to get to the playoffs and get to the World Series. And we'll see what happens. I think some moves are going to happen with these teams. Maybe not so much the Angels. The Angels might not make any moves until they see what Texas and Houston do, because they know those are the guys they're going to have to compete with. But right now, very solid team in the Angels organization, so keep an eye on this team. Good luck to them in the second half. Thank you again all for watching. You can follow me on Twitter at GHAM614. I'll be continuing LA Week tomorrow with a flop over to the NBA, where I will be talking about the Lakers. Thanks again. Bye-bye.